Hello YouTube, Ben here. Let's talk about some common fish lies that you see thrown around the web, sometimes on Facebook, sometimes on YouTube. These are fish lies that I've run across, maybe some that I've even shared. And some, certainly one of them had an impact on me just recently, which prompted me to put together this video. So take a look, let me know what you think. All right, let's go. Okay, fish lie number one. The fish colored down when I brought him home. The person that sold him to me must have been juicing his fish. Nope, that is not always the case. That fish might have lost a lot of the color it had when you first saw it because it's now in a position that is less dominant. It might be under stress, it might be getting harassed. Maybe your water conditions are a bit of a shock in how different they are from where this fish was living before. There could be a lot of reasons why that fish is coloring down, and it's not always that they're hormoning and juicing up the fish. A vendor who juices fish would have to keep in mind that once the word got out, his fish sales would drop to zero. So it's probably not as common as we would like to believe. And the reason that fish probably colored down had probably more to do with his position in the pecking order and the conditions of the water when compared to the water that fish was living in before. So fish lie number one, my new fish colored down, he must have been juiced. Nope, that is probably and more than likely not true. Fish lie number two, certain fish are always going to be mean. Not true. You get fish sometimes that have a very different temperament than the reputation of that fish. All Fuscos are not killers, but if you start talking about a Fusco on any forum, you'll get some stories about how a Fusco or a living stony or even a BC10 destroyed a lot of the fish in the tank. But the truth is that there are exceptions to every rule, and fish come with their own temperament. There are also conditions within the tank, such as the presence of females, similar fish, competing males. There are other factors related to fish becoming overly aggressive. Eye biters do not immediately eat the eyes of all your fish. That is not true, even though they have the name eye biter. I was warned by somebody years ago never to get a VC10. Oh, they'll kill all your fish. They're violent, they're mean. My VC10's actually pretty cool. We'll see what happens as they get older. I will thin it out so I end up with one male. But the reputation of a fish is not always the case. There are exceptions. Green tears, certain kinds of certain cichlids like your dovies, your wolf, right? You cannot have tank mates there, they will get destroyed. Some of these are, we know for sure. But on other types of cichlids, sometimes the reputation includes a little bit of an exaggeration because of an unfortunate situation that might have occurred with one fish keeper. Keep that in mind. Fish lie number three. If a fish can fit in the other fish's mouth, he's safe. That's not true. These fish are hunters, they're predators, and they will kill and dismember a fish if that fish seems weak, if it seems like it can be killed, they will actually kill it. I added some eye biters a little bit too soon to a grow out tank. The fish are all small. None of those eye biters would have fit in the mouth of any of those other fish. But one of the eye biters was a little bit small. He got hunted down, cornered, and destroyed. I found him in pieces. So, because it doesn't fit in the mouth of the fish you have, does not mean that the fish will not hunt, destroy, and kill that fish. This is why when I bring fish over to a larger tank, I try and make sure that they have both size and also proper temperament for survival. They have to have a willingness to fight back. Lie number 4. Because one of your fish died, you must be doing something wrong. Boy, I've seen this one create a lot of torment, a lot of upset for a lot of good fish keepers. They have a fish die and they tear things apart. They test the water, they do all types of maintenance, they put themselves through a lot of grief when there may not be anything wrong at all. I mean, look, if you have 30 fish in the tank and one fish suddenly dies and all the other fish look incredibly healthy, there's a good chance that that fish just died. And what does that mean? Have you ever known somebody who took very good care of themselves? You know, I'm talking about that organic vegetarian that jogs 5 miles a day, and one day that person just drops dead. Why should fish be any different? You might be doing everything perfect, and some genetic trigger goes off, and that fish goes, fins up. It's done. And you can look and test and drive yourself crazy, but sometimes fish just die. So lie number 4, a fish dying does not always mean that there's something terribly wrong going on with your tank. It can sometimes be that a fish just died. Lie number 5. Because you heard it from somebody reputable on the internet or from a fish forum, it must be true. That is not the case. Fish keepers are constantly learning and evolving. If you watch some of my earlier videos, I might say things that today I wouldn't say. So when you watch a video, keep in mind that the person you're watching is also learning. And that person might be spreading information that is not entirely accurate. This is why the best advice on YouTube regarding fish are the final seconds of every video put out by Eaven Alexander, #Hapnation, when he says that the advice you follow has to be your own. You have to do your own research and not just take the word of a complete stranger on YouTube. Those are probably the most sincere and honest words that appear in any YouTube video. Doesn't mean there isn't good advice out there. There is. There's also advice that is true for that person, and it is offered with good intentions, but may actually contribute to a disaster in your tank. So always do your own research, always make up your own mind, and in the end, never blame anyone else for anything that goes on in your tank. Ultimately, it's on the fish keeper who owns the tank. Do your research. With Google and YouTube and everything else out there, there's really no reason for any of us to fall prey or be a victim to bad advice. So it doesn't matter who said it. Get some other opinions, weigh the information, and live with and own up, live with and own whatever your final decision ends up being. So let's end off here with a look at the tank, and what we have here, you can see, since I started bringing fish over from the 60, from the grow out, my plants have been taking a bit of a beating. The culprits are the Venusis and the VC10s. The VC10s are equipped with these industrial lips, and they're very good at grabbing and ripping pieces of the plants. I'm not really sure if they're even eating them because I see little pieces floating around. They're supposed to be bitter for cichlids. The Anubias are supposed to be bitter, but I still see them grabbing, biting, and pulling and tearing. So the VC10s and the Venusis obviously didn't get the memo that cichlids are not supposed to eat Anubias. Now I did notice that they left the Java fern alone that I have in the 60-gallon. So maybe ultimately a lot of Java fern might be the solution. So we'll see. I'm going to keep an eye on this. Maybe they're learning, maybe they're spitting it out, maybe it is bitter. But I am noticing that new growth and even some of the older, more established growth is getting a bit ripped up, mostly by these little guys here. These 3 VC10s that I brought over. The other fish seem to leave the plants alone and don't seem to be really interested in them. But the Venusis and VC10, for some reason, don't have the bitter receptors in their mouth that the other fish seem to have. Just something to keep in mind. Maybe Java fern, maybe that's going to be the answer ultimately, because I do like having green and plants in the tank. You'll also notice that some algae is starting to appear on the back and also on some of the rocks. I like the look of the algae. The VC10s are also eating that algae. So is the bushy nose pleco that you can see back there. He's enjoying it. So I'm going to let that algae go. I know that Adam C. on YouTube is having some questions about whether he should continue to grow algae in his tank. I think it looks natural on the rocks, and it helps make the 3D background look a little bit more natural. I don't like it on the front glass, of course. So that's it for now, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. You are greatly appreciated, as you know. This Fusco continues to color up. I'm thinking of putting together a video, maybe after a couple more months, when these fish have taken on more color, where I can show you how they looked as juvies and then morph them over and show you how they look after they've taken on color. So you can kind of see the transition. I think that might be a nice video. Tell me what you think below about that idea. All right? That's it for now. Thank you so much for tuning in, folks. Much appreciated. So there you have it. Let me know what you think down below. Have you come across an idea on Facebook or YouTube that you took as gospel and followed it, only to discover later that it wasn't true? Do you have any fish lies that you've found to not be the case? Share them down below. Help the community to dispel some of the myths that float around, and let's get rid of fish tails, okay? All right, folks, thank you so much for watching. As always, you're appreciated. All righty, bye-bye.